Hey everyone, it's Mandy from Creative Matters. Welcome to Creative Matters at Home. It's great to see you. Today our project is making printed paper. So we're going to just be using paints or inks or anything that you have, or maybe dyes that can be used for creating kind of stamps or little prints. So I've got Indian ink here, which actually comes in different colours as well, not just black. So there's Indian ink in yellow and red and white and blue, and I've got the black Indian ink as well. I've got some paints here which I've just put out ready on pieces of magazine paper, so we'll talk about that in a minute. And then I've got all sorts of amazing tools that I found from around the house that we can use for making basically into stamps. So we're creating tools that we can make prints off to put onto our paper. So we have to be resourceful at the moment, so we're just going to look around the house at the beginning before you start your art session and get creative with what you can use to create little prints onto paper. For example, I created this one here just to show you, and you wouldn't believe it, but that's actually been made out of this little bottle lid here, which has little indentations on the edge. So I walked around my house. Sorry, that was a little bang from Mazzy. Hello, Maz. Come say hi. Come on. Up and down. Come. Oh. She doesn't want to say hi today. So this bottle here just had little, as I was saying, indentations that I used to roll along to create that interesting effect. And the lovely thing about printmaking is that it's never quite as you expect. All sorts of things happen. So for this one, I like the way in some areas it's really quite sort of thick and blobby, and other times it sort of runs out of paint and it creates a different texture. I can see that some people are tuning in. It's lovely to see you. Say thank you for saying hi, and also for clicking the like button, because I can see when little hearts go up, and it really makes my day when I know that somebody's actually watching out there. So thank you. So that one there is just using that, and some other ideas for stamps or things that we can print with could be things like this edge of the perfume bottle, this top part here. It could be the lid, so we're creating just an outline of a circle using that part of the lid, or we could use a smaller circle using that bit. Now, if you're using your mum's perfume bottles or your dad's, just make sure that you've got some paper towels on hand and a little bowl of water, so that as soon as you finish putting paint on these things, you can wipe them off. These ones are actually finished ones of mine, so it's not so bad. So there, just with one, sorry about that, I seem to have a bit of an internet connection issue, so we're back. So we're just talking about the perfume bottles that you can use. This lid here from another perfume is a good one, because it's quite a different shape. It's that rectangle instead of the circle, so that works really well as well. Then I've also found some other little circle shapes. I've got paper roll holders, cardboard rolls for inside, and toilet rolls you can use for this outside here. I found some string and I've wrapped it around a toilet roll so that we can get some sort of line effects happening. I found an old, almost perished ball with little sort of blobs on it, so that might create an interesting circular pattern. I've got this sort of textured tinsel kind of stuff which might be interesting, so I'm going to try that out. I've also got a credit card which I am not using at the moment, thank you very much, parents, and that's good for having a really nice sharp edge, so you might better borrow that from somebody at home. I've also found another little hose part that's got a slightly different indentation on the side, so I could try that as well. I found this little lid which has got interesting little sort of lumps and bumps which might make an interesting effect. What else have I got? I've also got this ball here, Don't Tell George, which could be interesting as well. Okay, and then I've also got a few decorative papers. I've just get my ball. A few interesting papers that I might want to add as well. So you can sort of combine collage ideas and printing ideas, really whatever you like. So we're just going to create some papers or some beautiful artworks using different techniques. So it's kind of a mixture of adding paint, like I had just with the yellow with the paintbrush, and adding little stamps and overlapping and building and building. And what I did was I started with this one, and this is one that is now dry, so that now I can come back to it and keep adding and overlapping, which really makes an interesting piece of paper. So we'll carry on with this one. With this one too, I thought about the colour palette that I wanted to use. Some of you might like to just go completely random and have lots of different colours happening, or you might decide to just have a sort of more limited colour palette where you could just do black on white paper, or you might do white on black paper, or maybe just red, white and black. It's up to you how you create it. And the nice thing about this kind of thing too is that I didn't really know what I was doing when I started. It just kind of happens organically. So just let it flow. Make sure you're doing lots of looking closely so that you can decide what's needed. Okay, so when I look at that now, I like the way this is quite sort of formal and organized here, and this is way more sort of busy and overlapping. So I could end up having an artwork that goes that way. I might turn it around to that way. And this could be a final artwork that you frame and put on the wall, or it might be just some paper that you end up cutting up like a collage and adding to some other sort of artwork. Or you could end up adding marks to it on top later on. And I'm going to be doing another tutorial about mark making in the next few days. Okay, so if we have this one, I'm just going to add some white. So if you think of it, these are like stamps, and the paint is like a stamp pad or an ink pad. So it's really good to just sort of spread out your paint a little bit so that it's not just one big thick blob. So just kind of stretch it out a bit so it's slightly thinner. Depending on the effect you want, you might actually want to water it down slightly. Okay, so I've just spread it out, so instead of going into that big blob, I can go into my stamp of white paint. I'm creating this. And then all I do is stamp it just like you normally would with a stamp and an ink pad. And that's covered it quite nicely, but I wouldn't even mind if it wasn't covered very well. What you can then do with your stamp is create some interesting patterns by just scratching some of the paint off your stamp. Alright, so I've got that kind of formal area that I'm now going to overlap. And what I love about stamping is the first stamp is always really thick with paint, and then as you go it becomes thinner and thinner, which is really nice because then it starts creating some really interesting, lovely painted textures. Okay, so I'm going to keep going. This time I'm going to turn it around and do it along here. And having stuff overlapping is what really starts adding to your work. Instead of just having all one layer, you can see there's a lot of overlapping there. So that's the stamp idea. Like I said, as soon as you use your mum or dad's perfume bottle, get a wet piece of tissue, wipe it off. It'd be terrible if everyone's perfume bottles got ruined, thanks to Mandy. Okay, so just give it a little wipe as you go until you don't want it to dry. Okay, so clean it up while it's still wet. And then we have to think about the next kind of stamp that we want to add. So I really love these cardboard rolls as stamps. So for this one here, I've actually just cut out little bits off the bottom so that the ink is not going to go all the way around the circle. It's just going to go in the bits that are longer. So the shorter bits there, hopefully you can see, are not going to pick up the paint. So to show you, I'm going to use black ink this time. And then going on here, might have to put it down. I'm just going to add quite a few circles. The ink is kind of nice to use in a way because it's a little bit more watery. So you can see I've just made some interesting extra marks on top there. Okay, now I want to have a look at it and think, have I done enough? It's always good to know when to stop. So I think I'm happy with that. That's pretty busy. So I'm going to start adding to my black one, and for this one I'll just keep it black and I'm only going to use white on top. Alright, so using my stamp. The cool thing about these cardboard rolls is that you can squeeze it together to make it like a little oval shape. So I'm going to add some of these, pushing down quite hard. And what's happened with this one is that it hasn't all come out completely all the way around the oval, but like I said before, that's not a bad thing. I actually quite like the effect. That might mean that I haven't put enough paint on all the way around. So if I really wanted a perfect oval, then add a little bit more paint and make sure that you're pushing it down evenly. So you can see it's not exactly even still. I don't mind. Alright, now let's try some of these other things. I've got little balls, so I'm just going to kind of roll it in the paint a little bit without getting paint everywhere. If you have too much paint on these stamps, sometimes you lose the shapes that you're wanting to create. And then on here I might overlap on top of my ovals. Looking interesting. And if you don't want it to run out of paint, you want to keep it really nice and thick and painty, then just dip it into your stamp pad more often. You might just do 2, back into the stamp pad. Okay. Now because I'm just doing black and white for this one, I'm not going to add any colour, but you might like to come back with another colour on top using the same instrument or the same tool and go overlapping. And sometimes you don't need to let that dry, you can just do that on top of the wet, and then sometimes the interesting effects with the paint mixing can be really cool as well. Okay, now if you're going to use something like this one here, you just kind of scrunch it up, make yourself a little handle. It's not quite Christmas time, but you might have some tinsel somewhere. Make a little handle like that, dip it in the paint, and this time I'm going to put more paint on it, so it's quite painty, and then let's see what happens. Wow, that's super painty, that one, which is quite cool. Or you could just use it to create an effect like that. It's almost using it like a brush. Okay, it's looking pretty cool, isn't it? Alright, so what else have we not used yet? Let's try this one here. So this is a great one for getting just a really pure flat colour. And make sure that you look at it so that you can tell that it's got a really good amount of paint on it. And then you could start adding. Oh, that didn't come out so well. Got to make sure that you push, apply the right amount of pressure. And because I want it quite painty this time, I'm going to return to my ink quite regularly. Push down all the way around, but it's got a little bit of an extra bit here that hasn't been covered with white. So you can either go over it again, so you've got a more covered circle, or you can just not worry about it. And you can see here that I'm overlapping on top of the lines that I made earlier. Okay. You could do it so it's very formal and very patterned and sort of very mathematical, or you can make it like my other one that's way more open and free. And this bit here, down the bottom, you might like to add something over the top of that now. So it's a little bit hard to do when I'm holding it up like that, so if you have it flat on the ground, flat on the table, it's a lot easier. Okay, and then remember, wipe and clean your lid. Okay, needs a little bit of water. Cleaning, you could even have a cleaning one and a dry one for drying up at the end. Okay, so you can see it's starting to take shape, but I've got a lot to do. There's a lot more I can do to add to it. If you wanted, you could have a white base and then start adding colour on top. You could have turquoise or pink lines, whatever you like. In fact, let's try some turquoise. So this is quite a good way of just getting that nice sharp straight line. Very subtle. It's really a matter of building, layering and adding. That looks quite nice, isn't it? Okay. So really there's not much more for me to say to you today, just to get into it. So you need to find yourself some paper and some cardboard. You can have collage papers if you want to. And then the fun part is it's a little bit like a treasure hunt where you're going to go around the house and find stuff that has a little bit of interesting texture or that you could sort of cut up to make different shapes. And then get your paint out or your ink, whatever you're using, and create. You might like to make a whole range of papers that could be used for wrapping paper, or as I said, as a collage for another artwork, or as a base for something that you might add to later. Alright, well, lovely to see you. Sorry about the interruption. I hope I didn't lose all of you. Have a fantastic day, and tune in again on Friday at 11:30 for our live, and don't forget to go to YouTube, subscribe so you can see all our videos on there. Have a lovely day everyone. See ya.